What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp. It's a common Bengals W. Man, see, I'm trying to get my Bengals stuff in the shot. It just ain't happening. I am in my Fightful setup right now. I got a couple. A little dimly lit today. It's all right. Listen, this is a preseason podcast. We're going to be all right. I'm headed to the preseason game in a few hours. Wild to be going to a Saturday evening game in August. But, man, football is back. Was watching Caleb Williams earlier. He looked pretty good. But usually when I do these, they'll be in the other studio with a nice, pretty background. It's not as flexible over here for football-related stuff as it is in my one over to the side. We've already got people in the live chat. Please leave a thumbs up. Please share your chats. I don't do super chats, humper chats over here like with Fightful, but we've got Israel over here. Great to see you here. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys about a little bit of football and make a prediction on the Bengals record. Now, I'm going to do another podcast before the season starts about what I think the season would have looked like if Joe Burrow would have only played when he's healthy. And pardon me while I turn on this light. Like, I know I said dimly lit, but damn, we gotta turn at least some of these lights on. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So the Bengals schedule, I don't have the technological advancements or producers of anybody else, but we're going to take a look at the schedule here. Week 1, Patriots opening up at home September 8th, go on the road to the Chiefs. The next week, Monday Night Football, so you get about an 8-day break there, a quicker turnaround, and on the road against Carolina, which, is, if it were a tougher team, have a little bit more of a problem with that. But then Sunday against the Ravens at home the following week. You get a primetime game again on the road right after that. Back on the road against Cleveland, who has always been tough for the Bengals. Next week, you get the Philadelphia Eagles, who are going to be a tough team. Raiders back at home, so you get a nice 2-week stretch there. You get the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. And listen, we'll talk about what you're going to end up seeing on on that Thursday Night Football game. But then the Chargers on the road. You get the bye week. You come back and face the Steelers at home, which is good. Monday Night Football, a nice 8-day break there. You're on the road against Tennessee. So even though that is a road game, it's not that far. I mean, from Cincy, it's probably 3.5, 4 hours. Back home for Thursday Night Football. So a couple quick turnarounds for the Bengals here. Then you get the Broncos late in the year. We don't know the date on that yet. And same with the Steelers on the road. But let's go ahead and talk about this schedule and what we are expecting out of this schedule as things stand. I wonder if I'm able to do no, it's not. Doesn't allow me to do any sort of different layout with this overlay here. But let's go ahead, jump right into it. I want to know what you guys think. Colby says, Pat's 34-10 week 1, 2. You see, Colby, come on. Israel says, what are we thinking the starters play first quarter today? The way that Joe Burrow talked made it sound like it'd be the first drive. I think considering the Cincinnati Bengals are so slow to start, I think that the first quarter is a good idea. I think the first quarter is the right way to go. But let's go ahead and talk about this. We got week 1 against the Patriots. And let's be real. If the Bengals don't win this one, contrary to previous seasons, I will be much more concerned. This is a season, a team, a franchise in disarray right now. Bill Belichick is gone. They were 4-13 last year. Things ain't looking good this year. They were one of the worst teams in the league last year. The Cincinnati Bengals should, would, and better easily handle this. Now, the Bengals have the benefit of the quote-unquote last place schedule, which, listen, the benefit of the last place schedule in the AFC North ain't that great because you're loaded in that division. I joke and say Deshaun Watson is like the 7th best quarterback in the division. It might not be that far from the truth. We'll talk more about that later. Week 2, on the road, Kansas City. And this is where I don't think you can start slow. I think the Chiefs are winning this game. But let me tell you, if the Cincinnati Bengals go on the road, face Kansas City, which I can't believe this isn't a Sunday night football game, cannot believe, then I look at this and I go, all right, the Cincinnati Bengals, if they win the first week against the Patriots and then win the second week against the Kansas City Chiefs on the road, I think this is a Super Bowl bound team. That's just how I feel. People always ask me, why do you hate Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce? Because they're good. That's why. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's any other situation, but the Cincinnati Bengals have had the kryptonite, specifically when Joe Burrow plays against the Kansas City Chiefs. They have sort of had their number. A little bit of help from the refs got the Chiefs that last playoff victory. The game at the end of the season ended up being much closer than it even should have been after a miserable start. It ended up being an 8-point game. I think the Bengals can pull it off, but I think the Bengals can only pull this one off if Higgins, Chase, Burrow have full preseasons, training camps, all that stuff. And I mean that relatively speaking, like uninjured versions of that. Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football. Now, listen, the Bengals are probably going to need that extra day. They're going to be back home. It'll be a Monday night game. And I don't see the Commanders winning this one. And this is very, very beneficial for the Bengals to start off specifically with these 4 games. Because as we're going to go ahead and talk about the Panthers week 4 on the road as well, the game against the Panthers a couple of years ago was one of the all-time ass kickings I've ever seen. Joe Mixon was about a week away from losing his job to Samaje Perine, had those 5 TDs. The Cincinnati Bengals have started notoriously slow the last few years. I mean, I was at that Steelers home opener, and listen, the Bengals should have ended up winning that game. No doubt, should have ended up winning that game. And they didn't. But they should have. They should have came back and won it, all that good stuff. But now they are starting 3 of their first 4 games against just quite honestly bad teams. And there's a definitely an area where the Bengals can finish 4-0 and then be, I don't want to say smooth sailing based on the AFC North, but put themselves in a great position to where week 5 isn't such a must win against the Ravens. You know what I mean? I think the Bengals will actually lose that one against the Ravens on October 6th. So the way that I'm predicting this is Patriots, Commanders, Panthers are all wins. And I think the first 2, Chiefs and Ravens, are losses. Now, when I say that, I think that there's more of a chance to win against the Chiefs on the road than the Ravens at home. You're going to get early, fresh leg Lamar Jackson right there. I think that one's probably going to be a demoralizing loss. And it could end up being a loss that we don't see a lot of out of the Bengals, where they just get blown out of the water. But for a couple of years, it didn't seem like they had hardly any of those except to the Browns. But they're going to go on the road against the Giants and win that Sunday night football game. They'll be 4-2, and people will be saying, well, they can beat all the bad teams, but they can't beat the good teams. And then I think they go in and beat the Browns the following Sunday. So I think that at that point, they are looking at 5-2. And people at that point will still be questioning whether the Browns are good, because I think that Deshaun Watson is madly overrated, injury prone, just probably not the guy that they're hoping or expecting him to be. Last year, even threw 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. The year before that, 7 touchdowns, 5 picks. Guy just he existed. He was there. played 12 games. Let's see. He's played 12 games over the last 3 seasons. We talk about Burrow being injury prone. I don't know who's to say that Watson can stay on the field at this point. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll kind of figure that out. But he also fumbled the ball 5 times in 6 games last year, which was a rate which was much more advanced than we had ever seen in his career. So I think the Bengals will get it done against the Browns. The Eagles is a toss-up at home. It's a tough one. And I hate to be the guy that's saying, oh, well, they stand a chance to lose against all these good teams. So I'm not going to say that. And I'm going to say that the Bengals win this. And we're looking at them at 6-2. And let me tell you, buddy, it just gets better because the Raiders are coming to town the next week and the Bengals are going to stomp the Raiders at home. 1 p.m. at 10 a.m. on the West Coast, Bengals are going to stomp that ass. That's what's going to happen there. The Bengals have a very favorable first 9 weeks. The floor is 5 wins. It should be more than that. I got them at 7-2 here. And how about this? I got them at 8-2 after the Ravens Thursday night football game because this is where I think the vengeance happens. I think it happens here on Thursday night football as opposed to that home game in week 5. So here's what I think the talking point is going into week 10. Oh, we all remember Joe Burrow last year. We all remember what happened on Thursday night football last year. You're going to see him. You're going to see that footage so many times. Then you're going to see, oh, well, they lost to the Ravens earlier this year at home. How could they possibly beat them in prime time? Then they're going to beat them. That's where I think that happens. Now, I would love to be able to say that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to roll into the bye week having won 5 games or 6 games in a row and not having lost in a couple months and all that stuff. But I do think that the Chargers are going to beat them on the road on November 17th. And that'll cause a lot of Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow discourse. I think Justin Herbert's pretty solid. They grossly underperformed last year, obviously. And I think this year they're going to be a little bit more consistent. This is one that I see them dropping. They go into the bye week. They come out, and I'm thinking they beat the Steelers. I'm sure by then there will have been a quarterback controversy. And fortunately for the Steelers, you've got Russell Wilson, who I think is incredibly underrated at this point. He wasn't underrated for what he was making. But the fact that the Broncos were willing to let him go, he's 35. Last year, listen, man, the guy played pretty good last year. 7-8, but 26 touchdowns and 8 picks. Come on, man. What are we talking about? If this guy was 5 years younger, teams would have been falling all over themselves to sign him. But the Steelers got him. And then you got Justin Fields, who is a solid backup. I don't think it'll get to that point. I think that Russell Wilson will probably be starting at this point. And quarterbacks who end up taking off running tend to give the Bengals some trouble. Now, Russell Wilson does way less of that than he used to. But I think the Bengals get the win there. I don't think they get the win against the Cowboys. I think Monday Night Football, they go into Dallas. They end up losing. This is where Dallas is probably having the screws put to them at this point of the season. Sorry, I didn't change the little banners here. My bad. Bink, bink. There we go. And I'm thinking that the Dallas Cowboys end up winning. I think Dak Prescott has a really, really good performance. The next week, the Titans on the road. Bengals are going to stomp that ass. I think this is going to be an all-time ass-kicking at Nissan Stadium is what I think. And as I look, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got them at 10 wins already here. And I think that this Thursday night football game against the Browns is a close one. I'll be there for it. Very excited. I think Jeff Hawkins is going with me. And I got that one going the Bengals' way. I think they're going to sweep the Browns this season, and they're going to eliminate a lot of that BS talk, a lot of that bullshit about not being able to handle the Browns. Week 17, the Broncos. I don't know how much more I need to say. Wow, I had those reversed. They're going to kick the living shit out of the Broncos. That's how I feel about that. Now, week 18 is going to be an interesting one against the Steelers. The Cincinnati Bengals here will be in position for the playoffs. They'll have, let's see, 3, 6. They'll have 12 wins at this point. And I think, quite honestly, it's going to come down to how the Ravens do. If the Ravens are right there and within a win, I think the Bengals play all their starters and they end up winning this game against the Steelers. However, if it isn't within, if it's not going to affect the wild card, I think our starters sit and the Steelers end up winning. That's where I think we are. 12 to 13 wins is what I'm expecting. Steelers haven't lost final season games in 2023. That week 16 game versus the Browns the day before my 43rd birthday might come up for it. Hell yeah. 12-5 season or 11-6 season, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, listen, the Bengals find ways to lose. That has happened. That has certainly happened. Tim says, looking forward to Joe Burrow walking his dog before the start of every game. Sure. SP3 says, I'm here to find out how much Joe Burrow will lose himself or sing for the moment this season. Bengals would feel so empty without he. Oh, yeah, the hair, man. I did a full show on the hair. Full show on that. Overall, I got the Bengals winning 13 games this year, which, I almost feel conceited picking the Bengals to win that many games, right? Like, it's like, oh, how could that be possible? Well, they won 12 of the 16 games in 2022, and they were going to beat the Bills during the DeMar Hamlin game, but that didn't end up happening. They won 10 games the year prior. When Joe Burrow is healthy, these guys win games. That's the long and short of it. And listen, I believe that they probably could have ended up with 10 or 11 wins had they just sat Joe Burrow the first 2 games. I'll go ahead and talk about that here. I ain't got to do another show about this. I think last season, the Cincinnati Bengals, who finished 9-8, listen, they were going to lose Joe Burrow due to the wrist thing. There's no preparing for that. There's no alternate route for that, anything. There's no way they could have prevented that. And from that point on, the games are going to be what they were going to be. With 2020 hindsight, the Cincinnati Bengals should have sat Joe Burrow the first 2 weeks of the season. He was hurt during the first 4 weeks of the season. But I'll say that I want to make this clear. He should have sat the first 2 weeks, because if he sat the first 2 weeks, he would have been healthy for 3 and 4. The Bengals were not going to beat the Cleveland Browns week 1. The Cleveland Browns were on a mission. The Browns at that point had the Bengals number. That's just where we are with this. However, a 3-point difference in that game too, if the way that I look at things, and that this was at home, I was at that game. It was very demoralizing. If the Bengals would have done a few things, first off, play Jake Browning, knowing what we know now, would have been a difference of at least 3 points for sure. Now, Joe Burrow went 27 of 41, but he was so predictable during that game. They ran Joe Mixon 13 times, It didn't work too well. They should have run the ball more. They shouldn't have thrown as many screen passes, all that. They could have won that game. Had they sat Joe Burrow, he would have been healthy for week 3 and 4, and they still won week 3. But I think that they beat the Titans week 4 as well. Even though it was 27-3, I think they beat the Titans. And the Bengals are probably looking at a 10 or 11 win season and probably snuck into the playoffs there. The Bengals also, just to be clear, should have beaten the Texans. It's amazing that that horrible game against the Steelers was so close, 6 points. Yeah, man. Cincinnati Bengals football, I'm so excited for it. Israel says, facts, I know Joe Burrow wanted to play, but got to protect the players from themselves. And at the time, I was very loud and obnoxious about the fact that I wanted Joe Burrow to play. Jamar Chase said, nope, I think he should sit. And I was like, how could you say that? Jamar Chase was right. I will not doubt the man again. Bengals could have been an 11-win team last year. Had Joe Burrow sat those first 2 games, they would have won one of them. Then they would have beat the Titans, I think, with a full strength Joe Burrow. Also, they probably should have ran the ball and thrown to tight ends more when Joe Burrow was hurt. It is insane that they had him under center, or no, he was out of the shotgun. They didn't run the ball more, and they were not throwing the ball to tight ends. There were 4 throws to tight ends that week 4 game. They should be throwing the ball to tight ends 7 to 8 times a game. It's asinine to me. Like, I always make the joke, they discovered they were allowed to throw to tight ends like on week 8 or week 9. Well, what does a tight end do? They run shorter routes, usually across the middle of the field. You can get the ball to them quicker. And with Joe Burrow, their high catch rate as well. I think Irv Smith got 4 targets against the Ravens. They should, maybe shouldn't have been Irv Smith. They should have thrown to tight ends 5, 6, 7 times there. Guys, appreciate you all so much. Football's back. We're out.